Good evening, everyone. Welcome back, future lawyers. Day 11 of our bar review. We are now 178 days away from the bar examination. Today, we are going to explore a very important concept, the rule-making power of the Supreme. We will look into the scope, the constitutional limits, and the exclusivity of the court's power to promulgate rules of procedure. But before we dive into that, let us anchor ourselves with our verse for today from Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. As the legal concepts get deeper and more complex, remember that your hard work is backed by His grace. Now, before we begin today's topic, as promised, let us first review the assignment I left you back in Day 8 regarding the retroactive application of procedural rules. Here is the question we left hanging 3 days ago. Frank filed his case in 2018 under the old rules, and the trial court initially denied the motion to hear affirmative defense. But when the 2019 amendments took effect in May 2020, the judge suddenly retroactively applied the new rules and dismissed Frank's complaint motu proprio. Was the judge correct in applying the new rules to this pending case? Let us reveal the suggested answer. For this, we will use the Beer method of answer. If you wrote this down, give yourself full point. First, the binary. No, the trial court's retroactive application was not correct. Second, the enabling law. Jurisprudence provides that the procedural rule should not be applied retroactively when such application would not be feasible or work in justice. Third, the evaluation. Here, the retroactive application of the 2019 amendments to the Rules of Court worked in justice to Frank's pending case because he lost his substantial right to be heard on affirmative defenses and to file a motion for reconsideration. And finally, the resolution. Thus, the trial court's retroactive application of the new procedural rules to Frank's pending case was not correct. Notice how incredibly straightforward this is. This perfectly demonstrates why we use the Beer method instead of traditional formats. Those older methods often trap students into writing long, blocky paragraphs, encouraging them to narrate unnecessary facts or over-explain the legal basis. But remember our theory on scoring from day one. An examiner initially grades your answer in just 15 to 30 seconds of reading. Traditional methods simply do not help the examiner to read fast. The Beer method, on the other hand, is specifically engineered for speed and maximum points. By giving a direct categorical answer right away, stating only the raw principle needed, applying the facts strictly through key facts and phrases, and cleanly echoing the issue at the end, instead of writing it all in the first paragraph and restating it in the fourth paragraph, you do the heavy lifting for the examiner. They see your legal reasoning instantly, check their boxes, and give you the perfect score without wasting a single second. For our new topic today on the rule-making power of the Supreme Court, we will again use our four-level analytical framework. First, the big picture, to locate where we are in the syllabus. Second, the essential pillar, where we define the scope and constitutional limits of the court's rule-making power. Third, the elemental principle, discussing the exclusivity of this power and the court's authority to suspend its own rules. And lastly, the root level, applying the test to distinguish substantive right from the procedural rule. Starting with the big picture, we are still firmly planted under general principle. Everything we discuss today about the Supreme Court's power to create rules serves to establish the foundational framework and the essential mechanism required for the proper administration of justice. Without this power, the judicial system would have no engine to effectively process the rights and duties created by substantive law. Moving down to our essential pillar, where do rules of court come from? They came directly from the 1987 Constitution. Article 8, Section 5, Paragraph 5 vests the Supreme Court with the power to promulgate rules concerning the protection and enforcement of constitutional rights, pleading, practice, and procedure in all courts. It also covers the admission to the practice of law, the integrated bar, and the legal assistance to the underprivileged. Still, on our essential pillar, we must ask, is, is this rule-making power absolute? No. The Constitution provides strict limitations. First, the rules must provide a simplified and inexpensive procedure for the speedy disposition of cases. Second, they must be uniform for all courts of the same grade. Third, and most importantly for bar purposes, the rules must not diminish, increase, or modify substantive rights. The court can only dictate how to enforce a right, but it cannot create or erase the right itself. Now we reach the elemental principle. Could Congress step in and pass a law providing for the method and duration of appeal in courts? The answer is no. The Supreme Court has the sole prerogative to amend, repeal, or establish new rules for a simplified and inexpensive process. Furthermore, what about special courts and quasi-judicial bodies like NLRC or the SEC? The Constitution dictates that the rules of procedure shall remain effective unless disapproved by the Supreme Court. Continuing with our elemental principle, if if the Supreme Court created the rules, can it suspend them? Yes, the Supreme Court can suspend its own rules for good cause. This discretionary power is triggered by the presence of special and compelling circumstances, the clear merits of the case, or to relieve a litigant from an injustice that is entirely disproportionate to their procedural failure. At the end of the day, rules can be relaxed in the name of substantial justice and fair play. Let us bring this down to the root level and see how the Supreme Court draws the line between a substantive right and a procedural rule as seen in the landmark case of Fabian versus Desierto. The test is whether the rule really regulates the judicial process for enforcing rights. If a rule takes away a vested right or creates a completely new right, it is substantive matter and is beyond the court's rule-making power. But if it merely changes the procedure by which an appeal is made, such as transferring the venue of appeal, it deals merely with procedure. In the Supreme Court, the full authority to do so. To wrap up our discussion today, here is a highly possible bar question that perfectly tests the limits and exclusivity of the rule-making power. Let us read it. To address the mounting backlog of civil cases, Congress passed the Speedy Trial Act of 2026. One of its provisions expressly states that all appeals from the regional trial court to the Court of Appeals in civil action must be filed within a non-extendable period of 10 days from notice of judgment, modifying the 15-day period provided under the Rules of Court. Attorney Santos filed a notice of appeal on the 14th day, relying on the Rules of Court. The opposing counsel moved to dismiss the appeal, arguing that the new statute enacted by the Congress must prevail over the Rules of Court. Is the provision in the Speedy Trial Act of 2026 reducing the appeal period valid and constitutional? I will leave this question with you as your assignment. Apply what we just learned about who has the sole prerogative to dictate the method and duration of appeals. Draft your best beer-style answer, and we will reveal the suggested answer after 3 days. Before we officially end today's session, let us look back at our guiding verse from Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In the practice of law, we cannot lean on our own human understanding by inventing our own procedures or bending the law to our will. We must submit to the uniform procedural framework established by the Supreme Court, while also trusting in its higher wisdom to suspend these rules when rigid technicalities threaten substantial justice. On a personal level, as you sit down to draft your answer to this problem, do not rely purely on your own intellect. Put in the hard work, trust the beer process, and ultimately lean on the Lord to give you strength and clarity you need to succeed. Thank you for joining me on day 11. Keep up the momentum, and I will see you in our next session.